So if you've decided to become a video editor or motion designer, I promise you this After Effects course is exactly what you need to get started on your journey. This is a 15 to 20 episode course where I'll teach you how to use After Effects from scratch, starting with the basics and eventually working our way up to creating professional looking videos and motion graphics. If you're serious about learning, I'll be publishing 3 episodes every week and I'll give you exercises along the way so you can actually practice what you learn. We'll start with super simple projects for beginners, and as we move forward, we'll take on more advanced projects, challenge ourselves, and explore what After Effects is really capable of. My goal is not only to teach you After Effects, but also to give you the motivation and inspiration to fall in love with it. So let's not waste any time. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episode. Let's dive in. First things first, let's take a brief look at the After Effects environment. When you first open the application, you'll see a lot of things to work with. There are all these different options and panels, and at first they can look a little confusing, but I'm going to make it simple for you and we'll focus on the essential things you'll be working with. So first, let's clean up our app environment. At the top of the application, you can see a menu with options such as File, Edit, Composition, Layer, Effect, Animation, View, Window, and Help. You can clean up the sidebar on the right by going to Window, and you can disable some of the options we don't need for now. You don't have to do this, but cleaning things up can help you work faster. However, you can also leave your menu the way it is. It's completely optional. You can also save your workspace layout by going to Window, Workspace, Save Workspace as a new workspace. Let's choose a name for it. For example, I'll name mine BlendSpire. This way, if you accidentally change something or mess up your workspace, you can quickly go back to your saved layout and continue working without having to set everything up again. Now that we have our app layout set up, let's do the very first thing we need to do to start creating some magic. First, we need to create a composition. I'll name it main. And the width should be 1920 and the height should be 1080. Let's set the frame rate to 25 frames per second. And here you can also adjust the duration of your composition depending on how long your video is going to be. For example, I'll set it to 10 seconds. As soon as you create your composition, you'll notice that a panel appears on the left. And we have a timeline on the right. These are two of the main areas you'll be working with in After Effects, and we'll go through each one of them step by step throughout this course. Now, as soon as you create your composition, you can start creating text, importing images and videos, and creating amazing motion graphics and videos. So we're going to focus on the basics of After Effects at the beginning, because the things I teach you in this course are absolutely essential to know. So I have an image here and I'll import it into the project. Now let me import the video as well. As you can see here in my project panel, I have my composition, video, and image. To keep our workspace clean and organized, I'm going to create a folder. Let's name it Assets. And I'll drag my image and video into this folder. Using this color square, I can choose what color my composition, folders, or other types of files should have. You may find these kind of things unnecessary, but believe me, being organized is one of the most important factors for working faster and more accurately. Now I can drag my image into the timeline. As you can see, the image is now showing in my composition. As soon as I drag something into the composition, you can see that some options appear on the right panel that I can use to control and adjust my layer. Now let's go through them one by one. Opacity, I'm going to actually start from the bottom. So opacity is something that you can use to control how transparent or visible a layer is. If you drag it down, you can see that our image becomes less visible. The next one is rotation. It controls the angle at which a layer rotates. If you increase the value, you can see that the layer starts to rotate. and that's it. So scale controls the size of a layer. Increasing it makes the layer bigger, and decreasing it makes it smaller. Now the next one, which is position, controls where a layer is placed in the composition. You can move it to the right, left, or top, or bottom. You can also hold the left mouse button on the image in the composition and drag it wherever you want. As you can see, the only property that changes when you do this is the position. So the next one, which is the anchor point, determines the point around which a layer rotates or scales. This is not something I want to explain thoroughly right now, but let's take a brief look at it. For example, if I drag the anchor point to the right or left side of the picture and start rotating the layer, you can see that it rotates around that point. It's like the image is no longer rotating from the center. At the top of After Effects, there's a tool menu. You can select the pen behind anchor point tool and then drag the anchor point wherever you want. If you change the position of the anchor point and want to move it back to the default center, you can hold Control-click on the keyboard and double-click on the anchor point tool icon. Now let's not spend too much time on this, because later we're going to work with the anchor point more, and you'll learn everything you need to know about it. The same thing can be done with a video. Practically any type of content you're working with will have these options, such as opacity, scale, positions, and so on. Another way to access these options is through the timeline panel. As you can see, our video is right here. Now click on this arrow icon and you'll see a transform option. Click on the arrow again and you can see all these properties we just learned about. So let's make some adjustments to the video from here. We can scale it down, decrease the opacity, or change its position. We can also change the position by simply dragging the video around. Then we can play the video by pressing the spacebar. Alright, now it's time to bring in a text layer. In After Effects, there's a T icon right here in the top tools panel. You can click on this icon and then type whatever you want in your composition. Another way to do this is to go to the Layer menu, open New, and then you'll see the text is the first option. So let's select it and type something. This time, I'll type BlendSpire. Again, on the right panel, you can see the layers transform options. But now, because we have a text layer, there's also a text panel that allows us to modify our text however we like. For example, we can select the font and choose its weight, whether we want it to be bold, light, black, and so on. We can change the font size. And we can change the line height. We can also change the spacing between characters. You can stretch your text vertically and horizontally. Make your text uppercase or use small caps where the first character is larger than the rest. Using these two options, you can create something like a number that appears at the top of the text in a smaller size or at the bottom. Here you can change the color of the text, and finally you can give it a stroke. So let's bring the image and the video into the timeline and summarize what we've learned. So far, we've learned the most basic actions we can take in After Effects: bringing images and videos into our project, creating a text layer, and changing their positions, opacity, scale, and so on. Now let's learn one more basic action, and then in our next session, we'll take one step further. The last basic action we're going to learn is how to save our project. Now you can see that we have a very simple and basic project. So we want to save it. Go to the File menu, open Save As, and choose the first option, which is Save As Again, and find the right directory on your computer and choose a name for your project. Remember, while you're working on a project, you may want to keep saving it using Ctrl and S. That way, if anything happens, if After Effects crashes, there's a power outage or something else goes wrong, you'll have your project saved. One more tip about saving is that After Effects gives you an autosave option, and you can decide how often the app should save your project. Let's go to Edit, then Preferences, and choose Project. Now inside Project, you can see an autosave section. For example, I've set After Effects to automatically save my ongoing projects every 20 minutes. You can choose whatever interval works best for you. This way, you don't have to worry about losing your project, and you can keep saving it as you make progress. That's it. Now let's take one more step forward, and we're going to start creating some movement in After Effects. Now let's delete the image and video footage, and let's bring our text to the center of the composition. Let's open Transform, and now it's time to create some movement in our text and make it dynamic. This is the important part where the timeline becomes very important. So here's the timeline. If you remember, we created our composition as a 10-second composition. So there are 10 seconds here. Using this drag bar, I can zoom in or out of my timeline. If I drag this all the way to the end, my timeline shows every single frame in my project. Sometimes you need to make some changes frame by frame, and this is why we need to be able to see our frames. This is what we need to know about the timeline for now, and let's go. Well, now you can see that I'm changing the opacity manually. But what if I want the opacity to change automatically as my project is playing? This is where this clock icon next to the properties comes in handy. So you click on it and you can see that the clock is blue, meaning that the toggle animation is now activated. This is the keyframe icon, and you can see that there's a keyframe in the timeline. You can move it if you like, but I'm going to leave it at the beginning of the video. And then I set the opacity on this keyframe to 0. I'll move my timeline tracker 1 second forward and start increasing the opacity. So this is basic and easy, but it looks so much better than having the text visible from the very first frame. Now there are other things you can do. For example, we can have our text scale up as the opacity increases. All we need to do is to click on the toggle animation icon for scale. You can see that the keyframe marker is activated at the beginning of the timeline. There's already one, so we can make the first one smaller. Then we drag the timeline indicator to 2 seconds, so our text keeps growing even after reaching 100% opacity. So this is it. Now you can see that our text is increasing in size, but it's somehow robotic. It suddenly stops moving. And this may not be what we want. So we can simply give it a smoother movement by applying Easy Ease. You can do this by selecting the keyframes and pressing F9, or you can right click on the keyframes, go to Keyframe Assistant, and then select Easy Ease. Perfect. Now you can see that we have a smoother start and stop in our text movement. You can also change the movement speed at the beginning or end of the text. For that, I'm going to first remove the keyframes animation for opacity because I want my text to be visible from the first frame. And you can see that my text comes in slowly, then suddenly speeds up, and then slows down at the end. If this is not something you'd like, and you want your opening to be faster or your ending to be faster, there's something you can do. Select the 2 keyframes and click on this graphic editor icon. you can see there is a curved line here. And this actually shows the speed of your animation. So it starts at a slow tempo, as you can see, increases in speed, and reaches its highest speed in the middle of the curved line, and then starts slowing down as it gets to the end. There are multiple ways to manipulate the animation speed. For example, if you select the line, you can see two yellow lines with dots at the bottom right and bottom left of this curved line. If you drag the left one toward the right, it will change the animation speed like this. It has a dramatic increase in speed at the beginning, and then it slowly hits the brakes until it stops. You can drag the ending yellow line so you have a longer motion as your animated text comes to a stop. Or you can drag the yellow line on the right toward the left. You can see that it's easy to understand. Now you have a gradual increase in speed, but at the end it suddenly slows down. Another thing you can do is drag both the right and left lines toward the center of the curved graph, and this gives you a gradual increase in speed, then a sudden increase in the middle of the animation, and finally a quick drop in speed before it slowly comes to the stop at the end. If you find this graph difficult to learn or work with, don't worry. After a few quick practices, you're going to learn how to work with this graph. I promise you. You see, guys, After Effects is amazing. This is why I love this application. And I'm crazy about my job, because every time I do something, even something as simple as this with After Effects, I get excited. So this was it, and now that we've learned some basic things about animation, keyframes, and making our text, video, and layers dynamic, I think it's time for us to make something very simple with everything we've learned. And don't worry, this is not the end of the course, and we're going to make some magical projects as soon as we learn some other important things in After Effects, but I think it's time for us to take a break and to create a super simple project and export it so we can see what we can do with these little skills we've gained so far. Are you ready? Let's go to the next episode.